What is going on, friends? And welcome back. Happy New Year's. It is 2024, and I'm excited to kick off Elevate this year. There's going to be a lot of educational content. I'm going to be sharing a lot of the things that I'm learning through my clinical psychology degree, and also discussing more personality disorders, narcissism, borderline personality, and lots of other insightful things that pique my curiosity and that you guys seem to be very interested in. Relationship dynamics, all of the things, toxic stuff, along with health and fitness. But for this first episode, this comes from an interview that I did for the Personal Development Summit, and it's talking about achieving your own greatness. So this is an interview with Kari, and she's absolutely incredible. I don't want to waste any more time. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, click the like button. If you guys are listening on Apple, it would really, really help me if you left a review, subscribe to the podcast. And of course, if you guys have topics or things that you want me to deep dive into, feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram. But the time has come. Welcome to 2024. Let's get into it. Welcome to Elevate. I'm so happy you're here with me today, and I cannot wait to share this episode with you. As an evidence-based coach, mentor, and entrepreneur, I'm obsessed with learning and personal development as it's transformed my entire life, as well as those I get to work with. And to be quite frank, it's literally the entire reason this podcast exists, to fuel your growth, gain perspective, and acquire knowledge. So buckle up, friends. You're in for a treat. And as always, thank you for supporting me and the show so we can continue to elevate our own lives as well as those you share this with. Now, let's get into it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's your host, Kari Schwear from Grey Tonic. And today I'm introducing you to Kait and Michelle, who, and let me get her bio up here, guys. She is, I don't even understand how someone could be as amazing as this woman is in front of me, and wait to hear the wisdom that comes from her. She is a former D1 athlete, and she's also an amazing trainer and coach. And she is going to talk to us today about mindset. I'm going to dive in a little bit to fitness and some questions for her, but I know she's going to bring so much fire to us today and wisdom. So welcome, Kait and Michelle. We're so excited to have you.
What an intro. I hope I can live up to those statements. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat.
Yes, I am too. I am too. And you know what, guys, if you see down on her bio, it's not scrolling quite there yet, but she put in there that she's allergic to mediocrity. Can I just tell you, when I read that, I was like, boom, like mic drop, because you know what, this whole summit is about ending mediocrity, ending the settling, and achieving more in our life, because you know what, life is so short and we're all given a gift, and it's up to you to find it and push you across to the finish line. And that's why we're here today. We're going to talk about that in detail. So let's start. Where do you want to start at, Kait and Michelle? Because I'm like, there's so much to talk about. I'll just dive in if you're ready.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready. Throw it at me.
Okay. All right. On one of your social media posts that I saw, which, by the way, her Instagram, guys, go follow her. She's amazing. You were talking about open loops, especially when it comes to productivity. And I'd like to start there, because I think a lot of times we get stuck in this productivity mode, and then we have the open loops that are keeping us from getting there. Can you share more about that and your wisdom behind that?
So the first thing is, as a psychology student, one of the things that I'm really interested in looking at is how self-sabotage shows up. And one of the things that we do, that's not, again, anytime that I'm talking about behavior, is that the thoughts that we have aren't conscious ones. But procrastination is a form of self-sabotage, right? Because most people have aspirations and they have goals and they have an idea of what it's going to take for them to get there. But then they start adding things to their plate. And they add and they add and they say yes, and they don't set boundaries. And then they look at their list, and it's so paralyzing because there are so many things. And one of the things that I find most people struggle with is thinking things through, like having some type of framework or funnel to run their ideas through. And so oftentimes when I'm speaking on podcasts, I'm teaching people how to think. And so one thing that I mentioned in that clip is, first of all, if you want to push back on, cutting things off of your list, you're not getting them done anyways. So we can let that go, right? And then the next thing is, well, how much capacity do you actually have in a day to get projects done? And of course, they're all going to differ between the amount of time, resources, effort, research that you need to do to get them done, right? So I try to limit that to 3 things. Now, of course, you might have a list of 50 things, and that's entirely overwhelming. But guess what? Like I said, if you look at that list, the first thing that you have to ask yourself is, What are the most important things that are on that list that only I can do and they need to be done now? They're the most important projects. You need to circle those things. The second thing that you do when you look at that list is you go, okay, well, can I delegate any of these items? Can I
Mhm.
outsource them to somebody else to complete them? If you can, you take those items, you outsource them. Everything else on that list, you just cross out. It's not important. It's not pressing. It doesn't need to be done right now. And you're the only person that can do it, ideally, or at least to your own understanding at this point, based on where you are. And it's not that important. So once you actually start getting down the list and accomplishing things, sure, you can come back to those things, but you might find as well that once you actually start ticking the boxes on some of those projects, better opportunities come, higher leverage
Mhm.
opportunities come, right? More important tasks need to be done as a consequence to that, which is a good thing. And so
Right.
that's why you can't get so attached to I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. Like you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies at that point, and it's just not productive long term for you.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that. And I love that you brought up imposter syndrome because there's a lot of people watching that either have their own business, they have something going on for themselves, and, they're in leadership positions, whatever, and they might not feel like it. Matter of fact, I had a recent group client that said inside the group, she said, I have 45 employees. And if they only knew that I really don't know what it is that I'm doing,
Yeah.
I'd be devastated for them to find out. Have you found that to be true with the people you've worked with that,
Oh,
there's
100%.
yeah.
I think a lot of people struggle to just be honest, especially
Mhm.
with social media. I promise you, none of us have it figured out. I promise you. Nobody you meet will ever have it completely figured out. But that's also the fun of it. That's what makes life exciting. If you knew what was going to come next 100%, how exciting would that be? Like, not at
Yes.
all. And you also have to remember you are human. And if you've brought on the right people to your team, what I've found over time, especially in my own business, but even helping other business owners, is that the more transparent you are with your team, the more bought in they tend to be. Because now they feel like one, you're not hiding anything from them. And two, they know what an asset they are. Right. If you
Mhm.
put somebody on and you see your revenue increase a certain percentage based on your previous revenue, let's say last quarter, right, you can look at that and be like, this one change changed everything. This is what we're seeing because of that. Now I
Mhm.
need more of this from you, or hey, here's a bonus for your like. I just think that having the team involved as if it's their business too. One, it prevents turnover because you don't want turnover in a business, especially if it's a service-based business. That's very detrimental to the business in itself. And so making sure that you hire the right people, but also having transparency and letting them see you in your vulnerable places will build better bonds. I have seen that time and time again because now they know, oh shit, they trust me. They're telling me that,
Mhm.
right? I take that seriously. Again, if you've hired the right people and they have the good character traits and they're a right culture fit for you, they're going to care. And they might even have ideas that would help you overcome a sticking point as a CEO that you're not thinking of. So
Mhm.
one of the things, I know this is kind of off topic, but one of the things that I really focused on doing when I was building a team was making sure that their temperament was very different from mine.
So true.
The reason that I did that is because I don't want people that think like me. I want people that challenge the way that I think.
Yes.
And I need a different perspective and opinion from my team members that's going to make the business itself better, right? Because I
Yes.
don't associate me with the business. I think of the business as its own organism, and we all are pouring the energy and the fuel to keep that thing going. And so having everybody have a piece and a part in how we build this thing has made it so much more fun.
Oh yeah, such good advice. And you know what? You brought up something is so important, which is something that I do with my clients, is especially in the corporate world, is when we can find team members that exactly are opposite of us, their particular strengths are different than ours. It becomes a well balanced team that way, and you're able to complement each other because we don't want somebody that's exactly like us, right? And I think that's so key. Like my business support manager is totally opposite than me. And thank goodness that she is, because she's exactly what I need as a support team. So I think you brought up a really good point, 'cause I think there's a lot of that. And I kind of want to talk about self sabotage because a lot of, people are turning to things like overeating or drinking too much or distracting themselves with social media or doing things that aren't great for them. That discipline isn't, I don't want to say this, it's not that discipline's not there. It's just that they're so overwhelmed and they tax their nervous system that they start to move to some of these self-sabotaging behaviors. What do you say about someone who is constantly doing that and they find themselves doing it and then they do the beat up cycle, oh, I need to be better at that, but I keep doing it. What would you tell somebody in that
Yeah,
regard?
so this is where people struggle with bridging the gap between intention and action.
Mhm.
And it's not just one-time intention follow through action. It's
Mhm.
repeated intentions with consistent follow through actions. The
Yeah.
first thing that most people don't have, and we talked about this a little bit when we were discussing social media channels, but most people don't practice awareness. And if you think about how you're going to navigate through life, either you will consciously choose the path that you walk, or life will force you to walk a certain path. Right? You can choose where you go, or life will force you in a certain direction. That's 100% true across the board with most people.
Mhm.
And when you're little, what we know is that oftentimes, I mean, you can look at attachment style being solidified by
Mhm.
the age of somebody being 5, and most of your personality and temperament is solidified by the age of 7. And so if you look at that, I know we don't like to talk about childhood stuff when we're adults because we're our own beings of free will and power, and we just don't think childhood stuff matters because you're living your life right now. The problem with that is if you're self-sabotaging, most of that comes from your childhood.
That's right.
And
That's
the problem with the ego being in the way of, I don't need help. I don't need to talk about my childhood. It's
Mhm.
fine. I'm fine. You're not fine.
Yeah.
Because who you are behind closed doors, if anybody else could see the way that you were functioning, it wouldn't be fine. And so, first part is like, one, you can't fix a problem if you refuse to acknowledge that it exists. It will just continue to persist itself. And then you can keep saying, I'm going to start tomorrow. I'm going to do again. I'll try again. I'll get back on track on Monday. I'll do this thing. I'll start the project tomorrow. Oh shit, I forgot to pay that bill. Let me pay it tomorrow. And then you don't pay it. And then, lots of people let stuff go. And it's not because you don't know what you need to do. That's where people get frustrated. You guys are smart, man, especially if you're listening to this. Like, you've achieved a lot of great shit, but
Mhm.
you have to learn to get out of your own way. And that's only going to come from acknowledging that you're doing this, working on practicing more awareness in your day to day, and truly getting clear on what you want, right? Many people spend their time chasing these intrinsic or instrumental values like money. But, like, let me give you a clear example of contrast here. If you were on an island, what would money do for you? No cell phone, no food. You can't even hold a fire with it because you'll burn right through it. You can't spend it because there's no vendors, right? So their money has no value. Now, many people chase these values to try to fulfill something intrinsic to them, right? They think money makes them happy. So the value that they're really chasing is happiness, and they're doing it through the pursuit of money. But what you'll find is that people will lose sight of the value that they were trying to fill, the intrinsic one, by only focusing on the external to fill that void. And that's why people will chase and chase and chase until they have more than enough, and then they can't figure out why they're still unhappy. I shouldn't be unhappy. I feel so awful saying that I'm not happy. I have everything. I have everything that anybody could ever want, and I'm unhappy.
That's
Right.
right.
And that's why. And it's the saddest thing that I see because I work with a lot of highly, highly successful people. And I'll tell you, I wouldn't trade my life for theirs for a second.
Mhm.
Not for a second.
Phew, I just mic drop. I mean, you just nailed it completely on the head, and that's exactly who I work with too. Is very successful, outwardly successful, have all the things, all the material possessions they could want, the money in the bank, the trophy wife or husband, the cars, all those things, and yet there's this piece of them inside that they're trying to fulfill. And you're right, that is the most unsettling thing for me as a coach, which is why I do what I do, which is why you do what you do, to help people across the finish line, which is why we're even doing this summit and why we're talking about this kind of these topics, because it is so very prevalent and it's extremely contagious across the board when we see especially as we get older, when we see success isn't truly what we think it is or what we thought it was. And that was a really good example
It's
about
an amazing illusion, this concept of success in the Western world, anyways.
yeah. How do you define success?
Doing things because they make me better.
Mm.
Right? Like, I am very risk tolerant to things. I run it through a filter. So I have a lot of frames that I'll run ideas or topics or potential endeavors through. And my biggest thing is, does it make me better? Is it going to enhance my skill set? Is it going to allow me to contribute to my team and make them better? Is it going to allow me to contribute to my community and make them better? If it checks those 4 boxes, I will do it. because my values are always growth and contribution. Those are my two biggest fuel systems that keep me going, even when it sucks, even when it's hard, even when I'm not motivated, like all that stuff. If it's going to force me to grow, I'm going to throw myself into the fire and see what happens.
So good. So good. You're so wise. I love this conversation. You just blow me away with how wise you are and just for the knowledge that you have. And you're right. It is so much about in us internally. For me, I will share that for me, I think success truly is about having an internal peace amongst the chaos. Because we're always going to have chaos. We're always going to have things that don't suit our fancy or things going to pop up and we're going to have to deal with life. But it's how much peace that we have internally amongst all of that and still be able to persevere through that and just know that, it's the things that we don't necessarily see value in the moment, but we know that they're really there.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, like in regard to peace in itself, a lot of that for entrepreneurs or high performing individuals, the reason that they don't experience that is because they don't understand how to let go.
Yes.
We are always trying to control things, and the illusion of control is like the one drug everybody's taking. You have so much less control in life than you think. That doesn't mean don't try. It means stop expecting yourself to be able to control the outcome. Right? The rate in which you travel, the gravity of the achievement, none of that stuff is certain. Right? What's really funny about human nature is that we all crave progress but also desire certainty, and you can't have both at the same time.
Mm.
And so it's really learning to let go, focus on your internal locus of control, release the external locus of control. And then again, having that why, having that, what is that intrinsic value that is motivating me to behave this way, that's helping me walk the path. And if
Mm.
you're operating in a way that is self-sabotaging in nature, I would encourage you to explore if you're operating in your day-to-day in alignment with who you are and what you actually want.
Mm.
Because stress on a psychological and emotional plane will absolutely manifest into your external reality through the portal of your behavior. And so I think checking in with you, because again, most of us forget we exist. We're here to serve, which is a beautiful trait to have. But nonetheless, you can't serve to the best of your capabilities if you're producing C work.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, God, so good. So good. You know what I call that term about needing to be in control, but yet you're not? I call that pseudo control syndrome. When we pseudo, it appears as though we have control, but we don't. And quite frankly, none of us have everything perfectly under control. It's how we respond versus react, which is
Yeah,
the most important thing.
huge. And I think it's just, again, like if we talk about fears, I did a seminar last year, a year ago or so, on the 4 major fears that people face. And what's funny is we talk about failure, and I actually don't think people are afraid to fail. I think this is another way of saying judgment, right? Because you
Mm.
don't, if you fall short and nobody were to find out, would it really mean that much to you? You might be a little bit frustrated, but you probably get up and try again and see if you could do it better if nobody found out about it. But if you make this large announcement about all these things that you're about to accomplish, so that now you have people watching you, and then you don't succeed, at least to the standards that you had imagined, because you put pressure on yourself, again, expecting the outcome and thinking you know what it's going to be. We have no idea. But it's that illusion
Mhm.
of oh my gosh, I'm afraid of failing. You're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of what people will say about you if you fail. But
Right.
here's the thing about that. People are going to talk about you no matter what you do. Right? People at the beginning, it's so interesting to watch this happen in real time and kind of like everything makes sense in reverse, right? As you move through
Mhm.
life, you don't see how it's going to play out,
Oh,
but everything
exactly.
makes sense in reverse, right? So
That's right.
as I've like
So good.
looked back on my life, I've noticed this pattern. And it's funny, people that want to do better than you, when you tell them about a really crazy dream that you have, they'll be supportive. They'll be like, "Yeah, go do that thing. That's awesome. I'm gonna actually succeed over here while you go around and waste time doing that thing." Right? They're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, keep going." And then you do the thing and you achieve it. Right? And then it's the I knew you could do it. I knew you had it in you. I believed in you the whole time. Wink, wink, wink. Like, okay, yeah, cool. I saw what you were saying on Twitter. And then you start to really climb. And that's where people will start to resent you.
Yeah.
And it's not because anything about you changed other than you grew and you had the mental fortitude to stay committed to that goal, but it's truly that you remind them of all of the things that they gave up on.
Mhm.
That's what you represent to those people. And so I
Yeah.
think just the idea of judgment is ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you can focus on how you feel about you at the end of every single day, like, that's the hardest thing for me to ever get is my own approval, because I will always hold myself to a higher standard than anybody else does, but to me, that's the definition of self-love, right? If I
Wow.
don't expect better for me, why would anybody else? And so I think it's really just letting that stuff go. Now, that doesn't mean don't value certain opinions. You should have people in your circle, absolutely, that can call you on your shit, that can say that was not as good as you could have done it. You can do this better. Do it again.
Mhm.
Right? You need to do more of this. Stop being afraid because you need people to talk you off the ledge because we all have fears. I'm certainly not, some superhuman individual. You need those people. But if the idea of when you put it on the internet, all these people are going to see it and shit on you or have their opinions.
Mhm.
One, everybody always has an opinion. They're like assholes. We know this. And second of all, people forget very quickly. The attention span of the average human now is like 3 seconds. It's like
Mhm.
no one cares. And your audience or the people that you're serving, the people that you want to help, they need you to show up. Because if you don't show up, you can't help them. It's a
That's right.
self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't believe I can help people. I'm not good enough. I don't put out content. I don't help anybody. Interesting how that works.
Yes.
And what you'll start to notice is that your core beliefs are indeed the things that impact your behavior. And
Boom.
so if you don't
Yes.
have that, I am enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not courageous enough. I'm not ambitious enough. Like, you're right. You will be right. I promise you, you will be right.
Wow. And you know what? I've often said too, there's no measuring stick. Like we think there's this measuring stick we're supposed to be measuring up to, and one doesn't exist. Because every human that I've come across, and I'm sure the same for you, Kate, is that everyone has this I'm not enough deep core belief somewhere inside of us. I think it's an innate thing that we all have as humans. And
Mhm.
so to understand what that means for us and to overcome it, it takes time, right? This thing, that loop, that open loop that we hear inside of our head, the stories that we tell ourselves are always going to be there. So, what would you say to somebody who has that continual loop of it just won't stop? And it's like just when they think they've gotten over that limiting belief or they've conquered it, it sneaks back in somewhere. What would you tell somebody who feels like they hear that all the time?
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you my story because I think
Awesome.
this is the best way to share that. So,
Okay.
long time ago, after I tore my knee, I ended my Division I basketball career. I was at rock bottom in my life, and I remember talking to my mom, and I was sitting there on the couch, and I was like, "Mom, I don't know why, but I can't live like this, and so I really, really need to figure out who I am, and I don't know if it will take me the rest of my life to sort myself out, but I need to do that because I don't like where I'm at right now. I don't like who I am right now. Like, this is not it." And I didn't know who I was outside of basketball because I had started playing when I was 4. So I did that all the way until I was like 24.
So
And that
your identity was completely tied to the success of
absolutely.
basketball.
Right. And then again, going back to kind of like my childhood stuff,
Yes.
I was always praised for what I could do, not for who I was. Right, so my performance on the court, my ability to lead my team, my ability to, fix things, come up with new offenses, shift the defense, like coach people on the floor. I was just really good. I was really analytical and I loved it. I loved leading my team. I loved winning. I mean, I just loved competing.
Mhm.
But outside of that, right, that I didn't have a ton of female friends. I was always kind of tomboyish. I got along with all the guys. The girls were kind of like, she's different. And so again, like that was my thing. It was like I don't look like much. I'm 5'3". I'm from Vermont, and I have this dream of playing Division I basketball. And so I was like, all right, full send. Like, I'm gonna go. My mom and I fought. Blah blah blah. Ended up there. Walked on. Took a starting position. Played. Tore my patellar tendon. Ended. Rock bottom. Conversation with mom. Fast forward. My entire life. Right. And I shared my childhood in that story because I always had this belief that I was not enough. My internal narrative is good for now, but not good forever, Kate.
Mm.
Right, I'm good so long as I am useful, and once I help you solve your problem, you will dispose of me. And again, like, I decided a long time ago I wasn't gonna feel any type of way about it,
Mhm.
because you can observe something and just go, "That's got truth to it. Now what?" And so for me, it was like, well, I love doing this. It's a passion of mine. It makes me better. right? It helps me grow and it helps me contribute. So I'm cool with it. The problem with that was I continue to exist in my personal life outside of my business in the same way.
Mm.
Until one day I sat down and I said, okay, let's play a game. What would happen if everything in life was meaningless? This is all made up. It's all fake. Nothing is real. Okay. Then, Kait, what in life would mean something to you? And it just let go of all of this pressure to be who I thought everybody else wanted me to be, to fit into this box, to follow this path, to do these things. Like, now it's like, if I'm passionate about it, I'm going to do it. I just had, do you know who Jordan Syatt is?
I do not.
So he's one of my best friends. He's a huge social media influencer, but he and I go way back. And he and I just got off the phone the other day and he was talking to me about me. And I was like, look, I know that I went through, playing basketball. Then I got into bodybuilding and I was known for being shredded and getting people shredded while not fucking up their health. And that was kind of the path that I walked until I launched my personal business, Strong Fit Free. And that's where I really was like, okay, the vanity stuff is kind of a byproduct, but it's the intrinsic stuff that prevents people from getting to where they want to be long term.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were talking about this, I was like, I just have this obsession with personal development psychology. And one thing that he said to me is, one thing I love about you is you don't quit because it's hard. You will walk away when you're done with something. He's like, and that's different. And that level of discernment is really what's allowed me to walk a path that's fulfilling. Because if I'm not interested in doing it, I will stop doing it. I don't ever want to produce from a place where I feel forced because of what the audience will think. If it's not authentic to me, I'm not doing it.
Mm.
Right. And so that for me was like, none of them matter. None of it's real. None of them care. Your audience needs to hear what you have to say. Say what you've got to say. And it was just that I don't need anybody else's approval. I don't care what anybody else thinks of me, because at the end of the day, also, nobody will know you as well as you do. And so if somebody says something about you or judges you based on something, one, they're probably dealing with their own shit if they're judging you and you don't know them. So like, walk away from that. But two, if they say something to you and you know it's not true, it's like, why are you going to carry that around?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I know my shit. I
Mhm.
know the things I need to work on. I know the things I've overcome. I know what I've learned. I know what I need to continue to learn. I know what I've done better than you do. So why are you going to say that your opinion or description of me is more valid than my own?
Mhm.
And why would you give that power to somebody else to tell you who you are? But the problem is, most people live their entire lives existing as the person they were told that they are instead of who they actually are.
That is so true of parents with their kids today. You know what I mean? And even as adults that maybe our parents have done that too. They, trying to force us into being something and creating this identity. You are so right with all of that. That is you are so incredible for where you are currently in life. I'm just like blown away by your wisdom. And just the fact that you had this conversation with your mom at age 24, like, Mom, I need to find out who I am rather than what I'm known for
Yep.
and what I do. That
Yeah,
is
because
incredible.
I could have chased that stuff. Like, if you look at my social media, one thing you'll find is like, yeah, I'm in fitness. You won't find pictures of my ass on the internet. Right? It's like, I know if my goal was to grow my business as fast as possible, I could do that. It would be easy work. But I want the things that I'm saying to resonate so hard with people that they just want to consume my content.
Yeah.
That tells me I've done a good job, because it's the substance of what's in there versus, damn, she's hot.
Yes. Boom. It's about the quality and not the quantity of the things that are on there. And you're right, like just showing your body and in certain poses and whatnot. Yeah, of course that sells. Right. But
Yeah.
that's not who you are to the core. And I love that. I think the authentic person that we see on social is exactly who I see here with me today. And I'm just so honored that you came and shared your wisdom with everybody, because again, people who are watching, they might be a couple decades older, or they might be farther along in their life, or they might just be starting out and, their own career and whatever. And to just hear the wisdom that you brought and just the psychology behind it and is just incredible. Thank you.
Well, one thing I'm going to say, because you said that,
Yeah.
I just want to remind you, no matter where you are, no matter how old you are, no matter, again, I work with, most of my clients are older than me. They go through empty nest syndrome. Mothers don't know who they are if they're spending their whole lives raising their kids.
Right.
They've lost sight of their dreams, their ambitions, their goals, their desires, like all of it. My point being that it's never too late for you. If
That's
you're
right.
60, guess what? On average, we're almost all living to 100. So like you've got 40 years. What are you going to do with it?
Exactly.
You're only done when you say you're done, right? And you can either, like I said earlier, you can choose the path that you want to walk or life will force it upon you. But I'd rather
Choices. Yes.
actively control where I go next.
That's right. That's right. And I talk about the gray areas, and that's a gray area when someone is in that mindset and they're stuck in mediocrity. And guess what? It's a choice to be there. We get to choose. We can choose to stay or we can choose to achieve. Done.
You can stay or you can grow, right?
That's
Your
right.
comfort zone, the zone of what's familiar, and then you have your capacity.
That's
And there's
right.
always a bridge there. So
Always. Where can people find you?
if you guys are interested in listening to more of my long form content, I do have a podcast. It's called Elevate. You can find it on Apple or Spotify. If you want to dive into some of my short form stuff first, see if it's your cup of tea, then follow me on Instagram. That's where I am definitely most active.
Love it. You are amazing. And guys, she is offering a free call with her, and details are on her page. So check it out. Take advantage of her amazing wisdom. And Kait and Michelle, you're amazing, my friend. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your wisdom today. I know that you were a blessing for so many people. You were for me. Glad to have you on here.
Thank you
Well,
so much, Kari. I appreciate that.
you're so welcome. Guys, we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.